in his game maybe you would want to add to yours in the league?
Man, I think Luka. Luka's amazing and he's incredible. I think the way he can not only score the ball, but also the way he passes. And I think the thing about him is, like, he's not the fastest, he's not the most athletic, but he can get his defender to move where he wants him to go, and he takes up that space, and he does a really good job of either keeping the defender behind him or keeping him to the side. So I think that's something I can certainly learn from. Like, I always kind of want to run away from the defense rather than absorbing the contact and taking up the space that they give me. So I think, obviously, he's pretty incredible. He averages like a 30-point triple-double. So he makes it look pretty easy, but I can promise you it's...
Take careful note of what just transpired there. Caitlin Clark has made it known that Luka Doncic is the basketball player she looks up to and aspires to be like. That may seem quite typical until you notice a crucial detail. Stephanie Weiss, her head coach, stated on national television that the Dallas Mavericks are a better basketball team when Luka isn't playing. Take a moment to consider that. The franchise player just said to the world that she wants to emulate the exact kind of player that her coach believes makes teams worse.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Because Stephanie White has been successful. She's made it to WNBA finals. She's made it to WNBA semis. She's been a coach of the year. She's made it to 3 semifinals in a row as a coach. And obviously won a Commissioner's Cup last year. And is genuinely a good basketball coach. The question that a lot of us have had is she the right coach for Caitlin Clark? Not is she a good coach, because I think everybody knows that Stephanie White's a really good basketball coach. Is she the right coach for Caitlin Clark specifically? And that for me is always a really interesting.
This is the background that everyone is overlooking. Stephanie Weiss didn't make this haphazard remark years ago. The Mavericks were the 2nd or 3rd seed in the Western Conference when this occurred in December, just before Christmas. Luka was averaging around 30 points per game while performing at an MVP level until suffering an injury. The Mavericks went on a winning run during his injury because the ball moved more smoothly and role players received raw touches. During a broadcast, Weiss basically made the case that Luka and other ball-dominant players are detrimental to the success of the club. More people score, more people touch the ball, the attack runs better without him, she stated clearly. This is where things start to become awkward. The WNBA's most ball-dominant player is Caitlin Clark. She is not Steph Curry, sprinting off screens and shooting and catching. She manages possessions from beginning to end as a high heliocentric point guard. In a different costume, she is Luka. And her coach just spent the entire broadcast outlining the issues with that kind of play.
Like Stephen Curry. Like, not even remotely close to Stephen Curry. They don't play anything alike. Like, it's like saying, I'm trying to think of just a comparison to Stephen Curry. It's like saying Jimmer and Stephen Curry played anything alike. Jimmer just comes off screens and shoots from 30. Like, Steph Curry is this off-the-ball mover, came into the league as a 2 guard, is actually a point guard. Like, Caitlin Clark's like a Halliburton type point guard. It's mad. She is nothing. She shoots from far. She's nothing like Stephen Curry. 2 favorite players, respective leagues. Caitlin Clark and Doncic get more hate from keyboard warriors. I mean, Jimmy High Roller single-handedly saving Luka Doncic's legacy.
Listen to her explanation of the lessons she hopes to take away from Luka's game. He is not the shooter. She freely acknowledges that he isn't the fastest or most athletic player, therefore it's not his athleticism. She wants to become proficient at using his body to manipulate opponents so that he may take up space and absorb contact rather than flee. That is a basic way of thinking about playing basketball. I want to slow down, control the pace, compel defenders to respond to me, and dominate possessions, she says. That is the exact opposite of what Stephanie Weiss thinks is necessary for basketball victories. Weiss desires several playmakers, ball movement, and motion offenses. Clark aspires to be Luka, which entails having the ball in her hands, controlling every possession, and making all of the decisions. These are 2 entirely different ideas of how the Indiana Fever ought to perform. Ask.
However, we have to talk about what Caitlin Clark said today. So, if you guys know, there is an iconic clip of Stephanie White, and this is like maybe a month before Luka got traded. Or no, it was right before Christmas. So it was right before Luka picked up that injury. The Mavs were flying. Or maybe, sorry, no, it was just after Christmas. So up until Luka got injured, the Mavs were flying. I think they were the 2nd seed or the 3rd seed in the West. They were near the top of the West anyway. They were doing really well. Him and Kyrie were killing it. And Luka was looking like he was playing at an MVP level. Absolutely incredible. And obviously he got injured. And Stephanie White on a broadcast said that the Dallas Mavericks were much better without Luka because more people score and more people touch the ball. And the ball moves better without Luka.
And let's put an end to any comparisons to Stephen Curry before anyone else does. Steph Curry is not at all like Caitlin Clark. Indeed, both of them fire from a distance. The similarities stop there. Steph came into the league as a two-guard, became one of the greatest off-ball movers in basketball history, runs off screens frequently, and thrives in a fluid offense where he's not dominating the ball. As a high-usage point guard, Caitlin requires the ball to perform well. Comparing her to Steph would be equivalent to comparing Trae Young to Steph. Based only on shooting range, it is a lazy analysis. We would be discussing one of the most dominant players in basketball history if Trae Young were 6 feet 7 inches, which is roughly what Caitlin is in the WNBA. That's the analogy. Not Trae, Luka, or Steph. Floor generals with high usage and ball dominance who improve everyone around them by exerting control.
Have that like fluidity in their movement like a Shea. Paige is probably your best example of it. But imagine if Shea never, instead of focusing on mid, never shot the three or never went to the basket. That's what Paige Beckers is. And was mediocre, below average on defense. Paige is Timu Shea. But in terms of how they play, absolutely. Again, Caitlin is, if Caitlin can become a Luka type player in the half court, I don't think she will. Luka's too big and strong, finishes too well at the basket. And I still think that Caitlin, her peak is I don't think Caitlin's ever going to be the best half court player in the WNBA. I don't think that's a thing that's going to happen. I think Caitlin is looking at these players trying to get better. I think as much as anything, what we saw from Caitlin as a rookie, all she needs to do is be better at going left and taking left-hand layups, be a little bit better at shooting going right so that she's a threat, and get a little bit better on defense. And that player, with the right players around her, is the best player.
This is what makes the scenario so intriguing. There is no doubt that Stephanie Weiss is an excellent coach. She has advanced to the semifinals 3 times in a row. Last year, she took home the Commissioner Cup. She won the title of Coach of the Year. She has advanced to the WNBA Finals. She has an excellent resume. Is she a good coach? Has never been the question. Is she the ideal coach for Caitlin Clark in particular? Because those two questions differ greatly from one another. Even if you are an amazing coach with a tried-and-true method, you might not be the best fit for a talent from a different age. And what we're witnessing in public at the moment is that basic mismatch is becoming unavoidable. Caitlin attempted to radically change her game going into her second season. She was practicing new techniques such as hesitant dribbles and sidestep threes, but she was still unable to finish going left consistently. Throughout the season, she was missing open layups. She didn't trust it yet, so her shot selection was erratic. Rather than making small adjustments to what had already established her dominance, she attempted to construct Rome in a single day.
Clark is... I'm not going to say Luka's the player she's most similar to, because I do believe that in the full court, she's most similar to a Halliburton. But you can tell that Caitlin Clark likes to dominate the ball. And the way she works best in the half court is not through a motion offense, not through being an off-the-ball player, not being Stephen Curry. Because, by the way, Caitlin Clark is as close... Saying Caitlin Clark is Stephen Curry is like saying Trae Young Stephen Curry. She's nowhere near... I wouldn't say she's anywhere near Trae Young because, she's much... if she's Trae Young, if Trae Young was 6'7", that's what she's equivalent of. She is the height of a small forward. If Trae Young was 6'7", but if Trae Young was 6'7", we'd be talking about maybe he's the best player in the world. So, yeah, maybe she's taller than Trae Young as is. But if you guys didn't hear it today, this is what.
And this is the point at which the Luka analogy becomes really illuminating. See what Caitlin says she needs to do better. She doesn't advise me to improve my off-ball movement. I don't need to play an emotion system, according to her. I need to learn how to use my body as Luka does, she says. How to occupy space and absorb contact rather than fleeing from opponents. That reveals everything about her perception of her own growth. She is aware that she is not the fastest. Although she is aware that she is not the most athletic, she thinks her basketball IQ, tempo control, and physical placement will allow her to dominate. Luka's whole game is that he's not explosive. He is methodical. He dissects you using time, angles, and an unparalleled grasp of how to control defensive coverages. Here are the implications for the Indiana Fever going forward. You have a franchise player who recently turned pro, is already among the most marketable athletes in women's sports, and is giving the league unheard of attention and money. However, she is openly declaring that her basketball philosophy is similar to that of a player her head coach believes exemplifies bad basketball. That is a serious issue. There is a fundamental misunderstanding about how the team ought to operate. And it won't go away. Caitlin won't turn into an off-ball player overnight. She won't become someone who excels in emotion offense where she is merely one of many options. She is not that person. She is not unique because of that as a heliocentric guard. She requires the ball in order to make the most impact. Additionally, she is astute enough to realize that Luka Doncic is the model for achieving the highest level of dominance in that manner. Stephanie Weiss is also not going to adopt ball-dominant basketball overnight. Ball movement, various playmakers, and collaborative offense are the cornerstones of her entire coaching philosophy. She has that system. She has the CV to support her beliefs. What then occurs when an immovable object and an unstoppable force collide? There must be a compromise. Either Caitlin alters her natural game to fit in, or Weiss modifies her system to maximize what Caitlin does best. Weiss's ideology, or the Fever decide on a long-term course of action. The unpleasant reality is as follows. The future of that franchise lies with Caitlin Clark. Fans come because of her. It's because of her. From being unimportant, the Fever became a must-watch show. Corporate sponsors are lining up because of her making the decision to build around Caitlin's strengths or stick with Stephanie Weiss's system isn't particularly tough from a commercial one, but it's cruel from a personal one. Weiss has earned the right to receive coaching. She has demonstrated its effectiveness. Her worldview is publicly at variance with her franchise player's vision for how basketball should be played, despite the fact that she has established credibility through years of success. Luka's remark about who she enjoys watching wasn't merely a lighthearted response. It was a declaration. Caitlin Clark recently revealed to everyone the type of player she aspires to be. And if you're Stephanie Weiss, you just heard your best player talk about a basketball style that you strongly disagree with. This is not a personal conflict. It appears that they respect one another. It is obvious that Caitlin values Weiss's achievements and expertise. Although Weiss acknowledges Caitlin's generational skill, philosophical disagreements cannot be resolved by respect. Even if you respect someone, you may think they are mistaken about how the game should be played. The fact that they both have valid points of contention is what makes this scenario so interesting. Weiss can cite her sister's years of accomplishment. Caitlin can cite Luka Doncic as one of the greatest ball-dominant basketball players that led the Mavericks to the NBA Finals. Neither of these is inherently incorrect. They simply have fundamentally different ideas about how to win. This is why it's important for more than one team. The way the WNBA views elite athletes and offensive schemes is at a turning point. The league has placed a strong emphasis on team basketball, ball movement, and group achievement for many years. The culture has been like that. However, a generational talent is now stating, "Actually, I think the best approach to win is to put the ball in one player's hands and let them dominate." The traditional basketball ideology of the league is directly challenged by that. Every coach and executive office in the WNBA will be forced to reevaluate their presumptions about what winning basketball looks like if Caitlin is successful playing that way and wins titles as a ball-dominant guard who controls everything. And what Stephanie Weiss stated on that broadcast about the Mavericks being better without Luka is confirmed if she suffers, and the Fever are unable to succeed in that way. Therefore, there is more at risk here than merely player-coach dynamics. This is a vote on how basketball should be played in the modern day. And whether or not any of them wants that pressure, We'll find out in real time. This is the question I have for you. Do you base the entire offensive scheme of the Indiana Fever on making the most of Caitlin Clark as a heliocentric guard in the Luka style, even if it means letting go of a Coach of the Year? Or do you tell your franchise athlete that, even if it limits what makes her unique, she must adjust to a team-first system? As you are unable to do both. Furthermore, acting as though this tension doesn't exist won't make it go away. This choice will determine how the Fever develops over the following 10 years. So please share your thoughts in the comments.